And welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus on this finally Friday, June 20th. Temperatures outside hugging 80 degrees, and it's going to be a humid one today with temperatures getting into the mid to upper 80s, and then a good chance for severe weather across parts of the area. Not all of the area, parts of the area overnight tonight. We'll detail that in a bit. I'm Chief Meteorologist Wysocki, along with our Ag Director, Bridgette Readel. Good Friday to you, Bridgette.
Good Friday was a few months ago, but I also am enjoying this one. Thank you.
Yes, it was a few months ago. You are correct. We are looking at a humid weather pattern that's going to be overtaking the area for a short period of time. And as we see an area of low pressure and a warm front ride north, we're going to see thunderstorms, and those will be severe tonight. Now, the question is, where is it going to line up? And right now, currently, the best chance for severe weather looks to be along and north of the 94 corridor. That doesn't mean areas south of the FM area won't get hit, but the odds are this is going to set up along and north of the 94 corridor, and then those storms move rapidly northeast into northern Minnesota. I've got some friends going down to Lakes Country. From DL northward, you're under the gun. Basically south of DL, not a whole lot to worry about. I think most of it's going to be to the north of that area. So here in the Fargo area, we're right on the fence. When these storms develop, I still think the majority of them are going to be between Fargo and Grand Forks, and then the westward building, and then all that moves northward. So it's going to be a close call, but timing on that is going to be after 9 o'clock tonight, from about 9 at night till 2 in the morning. So those are not the times you want to see tornadic activity. Unfortunately, it's dark, and it's you have to rely on radar because, odds are, storm spotters, you could see it if it's illuminated by lightning, but it's a little more difficult at night.
Absolutely. And there was some good lightning last night. Personally, I had about a third of an inch here, which was a little bit unexpected. Glad to have it, though. So we'll take nice increments like that, small ones instead of just those downpours of 3 inches at a time.
Right.
Nobody needs that.
And I don't know if you caught the tornado from last evening out south of Dickinson. I don't know if you saw the vid. Did you see the vid? Yeah. And they had hail damage. Not good for crops out there. Stark County got hit pretty bad with anywhere from 1 to 2.5 inch diameter hail in Stark County out west. So obviously not good for the crops out there.
Some areas out of power right now, but it sounds like crews are working to restore that based on eyewitness reports from some agronomists who've been out in the field and let me know that. As far as how does the crop look, well, that's what they're doing today, is assessing it. How much damage was there? In the case of wheat, we see wheat that gets busted up a little bit and looks ragged. We probably would want to go out there with a fungicide to act as a bit of a Band-Aid to prevent disease going into the plant. Then the soybeans, they can probably get pretty tattered at this point. If they are hit hard enough, their growing points above ground, and they would be injured beyond repair, you might say. Mm-hmm. Corn can be fairly resilient. If corn gets knocked over, just depending on what that situation is, roots exposed, etc., corn can actually pop back up. And if its growing point is still far enough to soil surface, it wouldn't be heavily damaged yet. But we've also got canola out there, etc. There's probably a few beef cattle that just said, what is this and why does it hurt? So we'll get more reports from those folks throughout the day.
Gotcha, yeah. And, again, we had severe weather last night, mainly west, and tonight, it's like I said earlier, it's going to be a little closer to home. And let's kind of go over exactly what we're expecting there, because most of the rest of the afternoon looks quiet. In fact, we'll take it because, it's June. We want summer-like weather. We've got it today. 87 for a high, a lot of humidity increasing with southeast winds about 10 to 20. Then as we head into tonight, those storms develop after 9 o'clock. And generally along the 94 corridor, these storms will initiate all the way from Bismarck through Fargo and DL. And as they initiate, they will rapidly turn severe and move northeastward as we head between 9 and 10 o'clock tonight. And eventually they're out of here by 2, 3 in the morning. We'll drop down to about 67 humid degrees. And then Saturday, the atmosphere is too warm to be supporting thunderstorm activity. So it's just going to be a sunny, hot one with highs in the low to mid 90s. Humid conditions, south winds 10 to 20. And then as we head into Sunday, we're going to see a few storms east of the valley, and some of those could be on the strong to severe side into Lakes Country on Sunday, and a wide variety of temperatures across the area on Sunday from 70s west of the valley, 80s in the valley, and low 90s out in Lakes Country with falling temperatures as that cold front moves from west to east, and then more pleasant weather for early next week. And Bridgette, I think we touched on this yesterday. Today is the anniversary of the F5 tornado that hit Fargo back in 1957. Only the second F5 tornado to ever hit the state. And this was crucial because unfortunately I believe there were 12 fatalities, but this really sparked Ted Fujita on his research. He had just recently gotten over here from Japan. He came up here. He interviewed a bunch of people for his research paper. He had a 67-page research paper just on the Fargo tornado. And there was so much that was learned from the Fargo tornado. And this helped eventually get what we now know as the Fujita scale, which ranks tornadoes on their strength. So the Fargo tornado back in 57 was a big, big part of that.
It was, and in fact, it seems like it's sort of the tornado anniversary time frame, because next Friday, a week from today, is the 50th anniversary of tornadoes and flooding. There was a massive tornado near Felton. There was flooding in the region. I had some farmers send me pictures of that weather system, and so that prompted me to ask Daryl Richardson, our North Dakota State climatologist, to join me next Friday.
Right.
We'll be on air with you, Dean, and we're going to talk about what happened, because you're right, the 57 tornado is probably the one that people know and think of the most. And then when you consider what happened just a few years later in 1975. So we'll have the opportunity to talk about all of those weather conditions and what was going on.
Good deal.
So we'll see what it looks like.
Good deal. And if you are going out in the Lakes Country, or if you're going to be away from a TV tonight, make sure, please, have some kind of source that you can turn to know if severe weather hits. Because, again, this is going to be pretty widespread line of these severe storms, like I said, stretching from Bismarck, Fargo, DL, and then moving northward from there. So if you're going to be out, it's summertime camping, you're out at the lake, whatever, make sure to have, if you have a NOAA weather radio, that's ideal. Otherwise, just make sure to have an app that notifies you if severe weather is headed towards your area. And and if this turns really bad, we'll be on air covering this. So let's hope it's not as bad as what our models are indicating it could become. So that's fingers crossed.
I'm going to be really selfish about our 20 acres of wheat for Here We Grow. I'd like to not have hail damage on that, because being in the field earlier this week, that wheat looks really good. It's very lush. We had a nice planting population. Again, this is a Peterson Farm Seed commercial seed field that we are farming in cooperation with Jim and Michael Hewlin from the Prosper area. And because we've had such great help from places like Progressive Ag, Vision Ford, as well as Peterson Farm Seed, we don't want to see anything bad happen to our wheat field. So we'd really like to see that hail avoid the area. And I know I'm not the only one. Many of you are thinking the same.
Right.
Now, as we progress through the show today, don't forget you can reach out to us. You can call us on the JLA Insurance phone line, 701-293-9000. Dean and I will be happy to take your emails, weather or ag, at flagfamily.com. In fact, I get lots of messages. I had one yesterday just about proso millet and germination, how we could test for the germination of that. So thanks to our listener from Botno. She and I talked on the phone this morning and took care of that business. And then you can watch via video. You can find us on YouTube and Facebook under WDAY, Weather and Ag in Focus, as well as Acres TV. And coming up very soon, Dean, you and I will both be at the home of Acres TV. We'll be at the Ag PhD Field Day in Baltic, South Dakota on July 31st. So very much looking forward to seeing folks down there. And we are still in the midst of a great grocery giveaway. $10,000 is going to be given away on July 10th. We are excited to have folks registering by going to see us at places around town. Also, we give qualifying opportunities during this show. And so, Dean, I bet you have the name of someone today who's got 9 minutes and 70 seconds to call us.
I do. And this this one is Bridgette Oh, come on, Bridgette. You can't qualify for this.
I spelled my name wrong on purpose.
I see that. Daniel Lefstead. Daniel Lefstead of Mahnomen. Daniel, you have 9 minutes and 70 seconds to call 701-293-9000 to become a qualifier for our grand prize, which will be given away on July 10th. Again, Daniel Lefstead of Monoman. You have 9 minutes and 70 seconds to call. If you know Dan, shoot him a text. Let him know, hey, they just called your name. You got to call in. Hurry up. But when we come back, we've got a returning guest, Bridgette, correct?
We do. We're going to be visiting with Frayne Olson. Frayne's with North Dakota State University. He is an expert in economics for the farm, for agriculture. We want to talk about all sorts of things, and there's a lot of them right now. There's discussion on sustainable aviation fuels, tariffs, the negotiations. Are they good? Are they bad? Are they progressing? That could be helpful for our local economy in this region. And then there's that big, beautiful bill. And does it matter to us in ag? Well, we'll find out when we talk with Frayne Olson after we return. Thanks for joining us here on Weather and Ag in Focus. And you know what? It's time for your technology to run smoother, especially in light of what was been happening earlier today. Lots of folks saw reports about Google passwords, Apple, and more being leaked information. Now, if you want to protect yours and have someone who's on your side that can shut off those attacks and make sure that your passwords are kept safe and strong because they have a way to manage that for you, talk to Chris Sherman over at Tech Support Farm. He is happy to be on your side. And I think checking him out sooner rather than later, especially in light of what was happening this morning, is a good idea. Personally, I'm trying to change my passwords, Dean. There goes half my day.
Yeah.
Never going to get this done in time.
It's hard enough
Good
remembering
God.
them now, and then you got to change them, right?
Right. Have we got our caller? Do we have a qualifier? Is Daniel there?
Nothing? All right. How much time does Daniel have left there, Edison?
4 minutes, 3 seconds. No,
All right.
Now it's just 4 minutes.
Daniel Lefstead of Monoman. You have 4 minutes left to call. If you know Daniel, shoot him a text. Say, hey, you got 4 minutes, man, to become a qualifier for a $10,000 grocery giveaway. Again, Daniel Lefstead of Monoman.
It's the big day. And it's not just the big day for Daniel if he qualifies for $10,000 in groceries. It's a big day to have Frayne Olson join us in studio today. He is with NDSU Ag Economics. Frayne, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. It's a Friday afternoon. It's beautiful. I know chance of some weather tonight, but It's beautiful out right now.
Enjoy it now, right?
That's right.
Yeah, no doubt.
Okay, so I wrote down a lot of different random things for us to talk about today, but one of them that comes up from time to time is with change in administration and also change in cropping patterns. We saw a big dip in canola this year. Are we seeing a change over and away from sustainable aviation fuels? Although when I was at the Midwest Ag Summit last week, twice I heard someone say we have a declining demand for gasoline. What does that all mean?
Oh, where do we start? So let's talk about sustainable aviation fuel first. So the SAF, or sustainable aviation fuel, what we're doing is we're using typically biofuels, either ethanol as a base or some of the vegetable oils as the feedstock for making aviation fuel. And that's still really on the, I guess from my perspective, on the front edge of that technology. We can physically do it. We can chemically do it. We've got some plants that are being built or currently operating that will have that capacity. But the industry is still very, very tiny. So this would be similar to the ethanol industry back in the 1970s and into the early 80s, where, yes, we can physically do it, but the capacity just isn't there. There's a lot of interest in it, especially from the aviation industry, to be able to move on this. So there's a lot of momentum behind it. We have different feedstocks that are available. As I said, ethanol is one of those. You can take ethanol and convert it into sustainable aviation fuel. You can use vegetable oils, which you referred to, both soybean oil as well as canola oil. We can also use used cooking oil, which is also being used for the renewable diesel manufacturing. So right now, there's this technology leap that we need to go through, or technology development we need to go through. We need to try and scale this up to a level where it actually makes a difference, not only on the supply side, but then on the demand side.
And Frayne, we were talking before during commercial break about the Farm Bill, and how long have they been working on the Farm Bill now? It's been a couple years, hasn't it?
It has been a while. Yes.
Okay.
It has. Yeah, it's been, I think it's a year and a half, almost 2 years. Yep.
Okay, like a bunch of kids dragging their feet, not listening to mom and dad.
Well, they got a few things on their docket. It just hasn't quite reached the top of the list yet.
Okay. What are your thoughts on that? Is this something that's going to get done before the end of the year? I mean, it has to, right? Doesn't the current bill expire at the end of the year?
So there's two pieces to it. One of them is the actual legislation to saying this is what the Farm Bill looks like. Here are the requirements. Here are the payment levels. Here are the criteria that you're going to get paid out of. And the second part, which is really where all of the debate and all the discussion and argument is going on, is on the budget portion of it. And those are obviously linked. If you start making changes in the provisions to allow more flexibility and or to provide higher support levels, then all of a sudden that impacts the budget, and the budget has to be balanced. Well, not balanced, but the budget has to be addressed, and there's a lot of debate and discussion about that. And part of the challenge we have is that the current agricultural portion of the Farm Bill is tied up with the food assistance programs with SNAP.
Okay.
And so a lot of the food assistance programs and the ag programs have been linked together. They've been put into one package, and that's been going on. That has been happening for many, many, many years. But the budget for that entire package is what's open for debate right now. And so there's disagreements on how much money should be spent for food assistance programs and what that should look like. If we start increasing the amount of money spent for the farm support levels, what does that do to the package, and where are we going to get the money to be able to pay for those?
Interesting.
So to answer your question directly, I don't have a clue.
Right. Hey, you're honest.
So the House has passed their version of it, and this is really all part of the big beautiful bill, right? This is all part of that fiscal package. It's moved from the House into the Senate. The Senate is now debating that, and so the agricultural portion of this is, again, relatively small compared to all of the other moving pieces. And so right now, it's not the Farm Bill directly that's the tie-up or the holdup. It's more the fiscal side of it, and saying, okay, how do we finance this? How much are we going to spend on the package as a whole?
Okay.
And really, there have been stopgap measures put in between because you have dollars that have been designated, just not yet completely distributed.
Correct, and that's what's been happening. Is so we have what's called the continuing resolution, which is basically the stopgap funding portion of that Bridgette was talking about, that has extended the current Farm Bill and extended the financing for the current Farm Bill until we have something else in place. Now, there is some really, really old 1930s legislation that's in permanent law. So if we don't come up with something and we don't come up with some kind of continuation, it does revert back to that original bill. But nobody ever wants that to happen because it'd be very expensive and farmers wouldn't like it very much.
No, not particularly. Well, okay, Frayne, more questions to
Sure.
come. We're going to stop for the news. But also, I don't think we got our caller team, so we did not get a qualifier.
He just got in, I think. Addison's on the phone with somebody. And
okay.
Let's
that would be all right.
Should we hold? You know what? We'll wait and see if he wants to hold on. We can get him after a commercial break.
That would be just fine. And I just want to give a reminder to folks while we do that, maybe you have some spraying that needs to be done, particularly you're afraid that the ground's wet, you don't want to run down some crop, get a hold of both Matthew or Eleanor over at Hire Drone Service, and you could make sure to get those acres sprayed.
And Bridgette, we're going to take him real quick here right now. So, Daniel, boy, that's walking on the edge, man. You just made it in.
Hey, guys.
How you doing?
Awesome. I made her, huh?
Boy, barely, man. Well, that's cutting it close. So, did somebody call you, text you, say, "Hey, they just called your name. You better hurry up."
Yep. One of my friends did. Yeah, and I usually listen to the show all the time, and is at a volleyball tournament. So. Oh
no. Okay. All right. All right. Well, first off, thanks for listening. Second off, congratulations on qualifying, and we'll see you down there at Kingpins on July 10th, and we'll see what happens.
All right. Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Daniel. Have a good weekend.
You too.
All righty. So when we come back, we will we'll talk more about with Frayne about the Farm Bill and other ag topics, and we got the markets here at the bottom of the hour too. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Thanks for spending this hot, humid afternoon with us today. And just like one of our listeners said yesterday, you might be heading out and getting some of that Liberty sprayed. I have not been outside in about an hour. I don't know what your wind speed is, but I suggest you check it before you go too much further. Just make sure things are okay.
It is a little
And we are
breezy out
joined.
there.
If we're over 10 miles an hour, I got to shut you down. Now we're done.
We're over
Stop.
10. Yeah, we're over 10 here.
Okay,
Yeah.
then we're out. We're out of the field. But we are right on track with our guest today, and that's Frayne Olson. He is with North Dakota, and let me start back with that. NDSU, Department of Ag Economics and Applied Sciences. And so for me, it was just Ag Econ. Now we get this great big title, which goes with great, wonderful people that are a part of it. And so Frayne, also, we've been calling it the Big Beautiful Bill, which I sort of want to make fun of, but fine, we all know what it is. Are there a couple of highlights in there that you think of specifically to this region when that initially was rolled out for discussion?
Well, I mean, the one that we just talked about, the Farm Bill, is obviously something that a lot of the folks in agriculture are really concerned about. Excuse me. There are some tax provisions that are being that from President Trump's first term that were supposed to be expiring. That I know there's some that farmers are following very closely. Some of the estate tax provisions in particular. I also work in the area of agribusiness and cooperatives. There's a few things for some tax incentives there that I know they're watching very closely. So, within this particular area, or at least within my zone of knowledge and expertise, those are the two big ones.
Okay. And I knew about, like what you said, the Farm Bill type provision. There's a few things that are just a little bit that will touch on those safety nets, like PLC, ARC through the 2023 crop year. Those all affect crop insurance, et cetera. And those are probably things that, even though they're built in there, folks want to really focus on that discussion with their crop insurance agents once this comes to fruition. It's not like we can guess if this is all going to work out well at this moment based on what's written in the bill.
Yeah, correct. So there's two pieces to it. One would be the support mechanisms for ARC or PLC, which is the two major provisions within the General Farm Bill. Crop insurance is one of those base programs that we have. That's actually a separate component within the financing section of that. It is administered a little bit differently. And both of those, when we think about the cost and the spending portion of it, the last several years, the crop insurance portion has been the more costly of the two, simply because we've had higher prices and the what we call the reference prices within the Farm Bill have been lower, which is one of the debates and discussions is to be able to raise those because our costs of production are going up. But of those, it looks as though, from what I can tell, the federal crop insurance provisions will basically remain unchanged. There's not going to be any substantial revisions there. Maybe some little tweaks in some of the fine print, but the biggest thing in the Farm Bill component would be to try and raise what they call the reference prices, or those base prices used to calculate any kind of payments or assistance programs. So we're essentially taking the safety net that has over time been flat, and all of our costs and inflation have been going on, and we're trying to raise that safety net up off the ground a little bit to make it to be able to catch us a little quicker if we do have some problems.
Sure. So can we talk about wheat for a minute? Because I sort of love wheat. Not everybody else does. And right now, I feel like we saw an uptick in acres. And when you run discussions with folks and they're talking about what do they want to plant, is anybody saying that I dropped some of my canola acres, I went to more of my wheat acres? Kind of, what do you think the outcome of spring planting has really looked like? I know we're going to get this from the federal government, et cetera, but you have a much better hands-on feel for what's happening locally than anybody does at USDA.
Yeah, so just to refill that or to backstop that a little bit. So on June 31st, Monday, June 31st, USDA is going to release the part 2 of our acreage question. So in March, they spent a bunch of money, surveyed farmers to say, what are you intending to plant? And then in June, we have a follow-on report that says, well, what did you actually seed? And so we're comparing those to say, well, what was the actual shift, or if there were any adjustments? And we need to separate from the wheat side. I love talking about wheat because I'm one of the few people in the country that actually still pay attention to that, at least from an academic standpoint. So most of the acreage increase came from the winter wheat area, and primarily the soft red winter wheat area, because the last couple of years they've had a decrease in acreage. Now they've been a recovery or rebound. Winter wheat acres in Kansas area were about the same. North Dakota wheat acres were give or take about the same, down a little bit. Durham acres were about the same. Canola acres were down a little bit, and part of that I think was because of the cost and the cost of production. The cost of growing canola has gone up pretty substantially. We saw a very similar thing going on in Canada, where the Canadian wheat acres were increased and the Canadian canola acres were dropped. From my perspective, and from what I'm in talking to farmers over the phone, just like you do, I don't think we're going to see big shifts from that March report to the June report. So I'm really not expecting that report to have any major market implications, but it is going to refine our understanding of the acreage and what we need to be looking for. And if there were any shifts in particular between corn and soybeans, we'll try and pick those up.
Gotcha.
And
Go ahead.
Go
Bridgette.
ahead, Dean. No, go ahead. I was on mute and I had to get off fast.
Oh, that's all right. No, I wanted to touch on we've been talking tariffs. That's been in the news a lot lately. How do you think that's going to affect, or has it already affected agriculture at all?
So most of my concern, my biggest worry about the tariff issues is for our cost of production. The last time we had a big trade war with China, the reason the grain markets responded so much is we put tariffs on them, and then when they retaliated, when they came back, they targeted agricultural products. And so even though the United States and President Trump and his administration has come out with these broad-based, far-reaching tariff plans, a lot of the countries that we trade with have not retaliated using agricultural products. So the grain markets themselves are watching it very, very closely. There's a lot of concern. There's a lot of anxiety out there. But so far, our major trading partners have not retaliated using agriculture as that focal point. So the retaliation has come in other forms. So for farmers in particular, but agriculture in general, we do import a lot of products, components, parts. Obviously, longer term, if the steel aluminum tariffs continue to be very, very high, our cost of machinery is going to go up. We're already seeing the cost of computer chips going up. You can't buy a car or a tractor or a combine or a sprayer without some kind of computer chips in it.
Right.
So it's not only the cost, but the availability. And so some of these costs for the products that we're importing, whether they be machinery or even like fertilizers or chemistry, a lot of the core chemistry that we blend it here in the U.S., but we buy the components, the pieces to it from other countries. They're manufactured there, brought into the U.S., blended up to the specific codes that we have here, and then packaged and resold to farmers. So as those input costs start to go up, as the tariffs start to hit those products, I'm right now more concerned about the cost inflation portion of it than it is necessarily what's going to happen to the price of wheat or soybeans. Now, we are watching that, obviously, because that can change in a heartbeat. But right now, those have been the real impacts I see for the tariffs.
Okay, this may be an odd question, but as you listen to world reports talking about declining populations in major urban centers, so China, even the U.S. is on a declining birth rate. I think potentially India might be as well. Some of these are major countries. And then you talk about big movement in trade, where China may not be our largest trading partner anymore. We're seeing more towards Mexico. Vietnam actually was just discussed as a bigger trading partner, some of those areas. So where does that lead us for commodity crops? I mean, if your crystal ball is pretty murky, I'm sure, but as you think ahead, do we see a big shift away from our traditional corn and soybeans? Do we see that we're able to make up the difference, so to speak, even though those factors are against us with declining populations and major shifts in trade, that we're going to see our economy recover, as people would want to say? We want to go back to what we were 2-3 years ago?
So you got half an hour?
Sure.
There's a lot.
Jay's not going to mind.
There's a lot to unpack there. So let me see if I can make this really kind of straightforward and brief. So when we look at U.S. population, so our U.S. population has been growing, but very, very slowly, and a big portion of that has been because of immigration, and not just because of the immigration of people that are of low skill level, but also immigration for those that are very, very highly skilled. In China, their population is actually starting to decrease. Chinese population has peaked and is now starting to decrease because of their demographics. They have a lot of folks that are older that are now retiring and dying. Their birth rates, because of the one-child policy, have been very, very low for many, many, many years. And so their population over the next several years is starting will decline. India specifically, they are continuing to grow. The population in India has not tapped out yet. We look at other countries like Southeast Asia, also to some degree Mexico, their populations are still growing. The key to this, in particular for the crops that we grow, primarily corn and soybeans, those two crops are really focused on feed and fuel production. Feed and fuel versus wheat, a lot of the pulse crops, field peas, lentils, those kinds of things. Those are food crops. Durum is another example of food crops. The feed crops, the reason they have been growing so quickly is not only because of population, but actually more importantly, the growth in their economies. As people get more wealthy, as they start to earn more money, we start to move away from vegetable protein to animal protein. And anytime you get a country like a China or like in India, or even into Southeast Asia, where you've got hundreds of millions of people or billions of people in the case of India, when they make a small shift to increase more animal protein in their diet, those animals need to be fed. And a lot of those countries have a hard or difficult time producing enough feed for their animals, let alone the food crops. So when they prioritize, like in China, when they prioritize things, they prioritize the food crops. They said we can import the feed crops. Okay, so that shift is really, as an economist, is what I'm looking for, is what is not only their population, but more importantly, what's their income? And are they starting to make that shift from vegetable protein to animal protein? When they make that shift, all of a sudden the demand base, the need for feed crops like soybean meal, like corn, suddenly grow exponentially. And it's the ability to pay for the food. It's not just that I'm hungry.
Mm-hmm. Yep, those are huge portions. Like you said, differentiating between those two, I don't want to say commodities, but nonetheless, the food crop versus the fuel crop. And do we think that we'll be able to rebound on some of these commodity prices? The cattle guys are having a great time right now, and good for them. They deserve it.
Well, and a lot of that's cattle supply and meat supply is down quite a bit, so that's a big part of it.
That is, and I know that we'd like to see recovery in other commodities too.
Yeah, so in my view, it's a matter of timing. I do think there's definitely opportunity. I think there's definitely potential. If we can get some of these trade agreements pushed through the process, actually written down and agreed upon and signed so they become permanent, a permanent fixture, and trading partners feel more comfortable being able to do business with us, I do think there is that potential. But the thing with trade is it's got to be somewhat reciprocal. In order for a lot of these countries to be able to grow economically, they need to be able to sell some of their products into the U.S. as well, because that's how they're going to generate the revenue or the earnings they need to be able to buy our products. Right. So it is a two-way street. We have to be a little bit careful. It always is. We've got to be a little careful of that.
Well, Frank,
the world of economics is
no
huge,
doubt.
and there's a lot to share.
No doubt. Well, thanks for joining us this afternoon again.
No, it was my pleasure. Always a lot of fun.
Appreciate it. And when we come back, we're going to have another recap on the severe storms that are expected tonight. Time those things out. Tell you about a hot weekend as well. More on that, and we'll hit a couple of ag topics when we come back. And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus, 1:54 in the afternoon. Temperatures right around the 80-degree mark throughout much of the area. We've got some high clouds out to the west, even a few returns on radar here. A lot of that's aloft as warm air is fighting into the area, and severe weather is going to be a good bet as we head into tonight. Right now, the best threat of severe weather focused along and north of the 94 corridor, all the way from Bismarck through Fargo and stretching down towards DL. Those storms will initiate around 9 o'clock or so tonight, and they're going to move rapidly. They're going to explode very quickly within probably an hour. Between 9 and 10, we'll have a lot of severe weather expected across the area with damaging winds, large hail, the main threat, but we could also see a couple of isolated tornadoes, especially at the beginning as these storms really start to ramp up. But they're out of here shortly after midnight, probably 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, a little longer in our far northern counties. But they're quick moving, but they're going to pack a punch. So if you're going to be out and about, let's say you're going to be camping or out at the lakes, make sure to have your weather information handy, just so you know that if you've got severe storms heading into your area. And then that'll lead to a hot and humid day tomorrow, with highs in the low 90s, heat advisories in effect from DL southward. We'll have heat index readings up and down the valley, probably close to 100. And then turning cooler with falling temperatures on Sunday from the valley westward, but still remaining quite hot into Lakes country, where they might have some stronger storms late in the day on Sunday.
Okay, I'm going to make fun of this just a little bit. Severe weather is not funny, and we are facing that right now. But do remember, this is the kind of weather that you should be prepared for. You should be listening to what happens. Put in your teeth, put on a bra, because remember, if the weather goes bad and you get interviewed by the news outlets, you want to be at your best. So everybody, plan ahead for that. That is advice from my friend Judy in Kansas. She said this is the type of bras and teeth weather we should all be aware of.
It's very good advice. Yes, it is.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
Very good advice and help.
Thank you so much, Bridget.
They are.
No, but we'll be keeping an eye on radar overnight tonight. So just keep it tuned here, and we'll keep you up to date on what's going on.
Well, a big congratulations to students in Minnesota who have managed to earn themselves a beginning exhibitor livestock learning experience grant. These are called Bell grants. They are grants that help students to show their livestock at the Minnesota State Fair. Now, in the large grant category, that's a $500 one-time payment to bring in your beef cattle, your dairy, your horses, sheep, swine, goats, and even the llamas. And then if you have small animal competitors for rabbits and poultry, that could be $250. There were 15 of the $500 grants given out. We have students who will be attending the Minnesota State Fair from Farmington, Goodhue, Albany, Melrose, Avon, Minnesota, West Concord, Rochester, and Northfield. So that's just a few of the towns where students are going to be taking their animals to the fair. And then additionally, agriculture has a fantastic role model, if you will, someone who wants to advocate for what we do in ag because he's a farmer himself and from a farm background, and that would be NASCAR driver Ross Chaston. He won his first race of the season recently. That was the 6th of his career, and he smashed a watermelon because of it, and that was done in Victory Lane because he's known as the Watermelon Man. His family has a background in watermelon farming. So more folks in athletics and agriculture combining to give the great stories of what we do in farming every single day. So thanks to Ross Chaston for doing that. Well, there'll be lots more to talk about next week. There always is.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, for Bridget, myself, I want to thank you for joining us on Weather and Ag in Focus. Again, be weather aware tonight between about 9 o'clock and 1 o'clock in the morning as we're expecting severe weather across the area. But don't go anywhere. The Jay Thomas Show with Tim Flackle, is coming up next.